one of the courses I studied in my undergraduate is philosophy. There was this argument I encountered. I can't remember it exactly, but I've tried to search it on the internet. I can't find it. So I'll take the liberty of trying to paraphrase it. It was something like this, that, for example, you believe there's God, and then it turns out there is no God. What will be your life? You most likely would have lived an upright life, denied yourself of the pleasures of this world, and then at the end of it, there's no reward for your sacrifice. What if you believe there is God, and it turns out that there is God? It will have meant that you have lived an upright life, denied the pleasures of this world, and at the end of the day, gotten your reward by going to heaven. What if you believe there is no God, and then it turns out there is no God? You would have enjoyed the pleasures of this world, not lived an upright life, and then at the end of the day, no consequence to your life. And then lastly, if you believe there is no God, and there turns out to be a God, what would happen to your life? You would have enjoyed the pleasures of this world, will not have lived an upright life, and at the end of the day, you'll spend eternity in hell, should that turn out to be God. And as a young mind of around 1920, being subjected to that argument, I asked myself, then who is this fool, that would choose, the last option where if you choose there is no God, and then there turns out to be God? That for me was the possible worst outcome you could have. If you choose, there is no God, and then turns out to be God, nothing, you lose, you would argue that if you choose there is God, and then that turns out to God, that is another amazing, that would be the best outcome. So I was of the opinion that if anybody actually looks at those facts, objectively, you would definitely not choose the option 4 of if there is no God, and then that turns out to be no God. You will have enjoyed the pleasures of this world, but spend your life in eternity. And maybe that is something you should reflect. Those were 20 years down the line. Now I'm 40, and I look back, and I think the biggest question for me, what is this pleasures of this world that they keep on saying you miss out, when you choose God? I have lived my 20 years from the argument till now, living that life where you say you miss out on the pleasures of this world. And that baffles me, because it's that I'm born again doesn't mean that I have no pleasures. I enjoy good food. I go on holidays. I listen to music. I dance to music, to good music. I have good conversation. I have had a life full of pleasures, So what is this pleasures we're being told that if you choose God, you miss out on? Most of the time they're talking about the wild things, the casual sex, drunkenness, orgies, all those things. But I've asked myself, are those really pleasures? They might be seen as pleasure, but the consequences, most of the time when you come out of this, the consequences are not wholesome. They're not wholesome pleasures. The pleasures that Christianity advocate for are just wholesome pleasures. If it's not wholesome, then don't do it. Don't get into that pleasure. So if we add to this argument that if you believe there is God, you will not have unwholesome pleasures, you will have wholesome pleasures, you will have an upright life, and at the end of it, if it turns out there is God, there is heaven. I would even argue, it's still a good argument, even if it turns out that there is no God. You have wholesome pleasures, you do not give in to unwholesome pleasures, you live an upright life, and even if they turned out not to be God, that for me would have been, that is still the best choice you can make. And I'm convicted, I have my evidence that there is God, and because there is God and He has said there is heaven, then there will be heaven. But my questions to you, especially a generation that think they are enlightened, that Christianity is a creation of man. Even if it was a creation of man, living away from the belief of Christianity, is that really a better life? That is my challenge to God. If they turn out not to be God, for Janet, I still think I am enjoying life better than those who believe there is not God. But I'll let you decide for yourself. God bless.